the next Associate Justice of the United States Supreme Court, the Honorable Ketanji Brown Jackson.
I strongly believe that this is a moment in which all Americans can take great pride.
From WLWT, this is Let's Talk Cincy, presented by Western and Southern Financial Group. Put our financial strength behind you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Curtis Fuller, and welcome to Let's Talk Cincy. If there is no struggle, there is no progress. Famous words by Frederick Douglass, spoken long ago, but apropos for this hour in history. Ketanji Brown Jackson, the first African-American woman confirmed to the nation's highest court. Some have called it one of our nation's finest moments.
Transformative. I think she's really paving a way as being the first Black woman. It makes me proud, and it just makes me even just recall, for me, of just being the first Black woman staff regent here at NKU, and just recognizing that we've been making a lot of great strides. We definitely have a lot more ways to go, but I think it allows our young girls to kind of see that, hey, I can do that too.
I think she will bring with her who she's shown us to be throughout her confirmation hearings, a woman of strength, woman of determination, woman of authenticity, woman of wisdom, knowledge, and I'm just super excited. I'm overjoyed.
As I celebrate her today, I'm also cautious and really trying to help folks understand the way that we need to rally around and support her so that she's not the only, and so that what happens next continues to reflect progression in a way that really allows all of us to show up more fully human, more fully recognized, more fully a part of the institutional, the American fabric.
I could cry. I'm excited. I'm a mother of 2 Black daughters, and for them to have this and to live through this and to see this, it's just super exciting. And I will say this, Curtis, my youngest daughter just turned 20 years old. She is a sophomore at Stanford University. Her passion is to be a DA, and she will be in Washington in September in the Stanford and Washington program, and it is my hope and prayer that she will get an opportunity to visit the Supreme Court and actually meet Judge Jackson, someone who I know is a model for her as she's climbing through the ranks and eventually law school and on to district attorney somewhere in this United States one day.
Well, Jackson becomes the 116th Associate Justice of the United States Supreme Court. She was born in Washington, D.C. in 1970, 3 years after Thurgood Marshall made history with his appointment to the Supreme Court. She was raised in South Florida and graduated from high school in 1988, 3 years before Justice Marshall would retire. Lacey Roberts has more now on this glass ceiling shattering moment.
It has taken 232 years and 115 prior appointments for a Black woman to be selected to serve on the Supreme Court of the United States. But we've made it.
Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson has made history as the first Black woman confirmed to serve on the nation's highest court. President Biden making good on a campaign promise.
This is going to let so much sun shine on so many young women, so many young Black women, so many minorities, that it's real.
For the first time ever, there will be 4 women on the nation's highest court, as well as 2 Black justices and a Latina.
I strongly believe that this is a moment in which all Americans can take great pride.
The first Black woman Vice President, Kamala Harris, presided over the historic vote.
There is still so much yet to accomplish, and that we can accomplish.
Here at home, Hamilton County Common Pleas Judge Wendy Cross made history of her own as one of the 4 Black women on the bench in the county.
I love being a judge. I feel like I'm called to be a judge because I'm from this community, and I think that you should be, you can't judge the community that you're not from. You should be a part of the community and from the community. What I felt is just overwhelming joy when she was confirmed. Why? Because she represents what is possible. She represents that there are other people that are going to be coming behind her.
The milestone drew a standing ovation from Democrats And Jackson's confirmation came with the support of 3 Republican senators. But her path from judge to justice faced controversial moments from many GOP senators.
If we get in charge of the Senate in 2022, 2023, we have a majority. I can promise you nominees like this will not make it through.
She has demonstrated grace and eloquence under extraordinary pressure.
Judge Cross reflected on her own difficult moments along the way.
I came from a single-parent home, and my mom was very nurturing and had really supportive grandparents. It was difficult, obviously, and financially. But I had the support of so many people in my community that wanted me to make it, wanted to see me succeed. And so while it was hard at times, obviously, there were many more times that I was able to just, press through.
Ashley Nakati is a second-year law student and president of the Bar Association at the University of Cincinnati.
It's just really exciting to have these many milestones happening in such a short span of time. We literally just had Kamala, and now we have Judge Jackson, and it just seems like all over the place, Black women are making history. It's tough, but it's important for people like us to be in this field. It's important for people like us to be behind the bench, in the juries, and everything else.
Expressing the importance of this precedent for future generations.
Personally, I think it means that you can go all the way to the top, that there aren't barriers, or will be obstacles, but we are breaking that glass ceiling, that there are spots for us at that table, at that bench, and if you want to be nominated, if you have your goal set on being a Supreme Court justice as a Black woman, it's not outside the realm.
Inspiring the present and the future. One view on how Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson's confirmation will change the Supreme Court. Let's Talk Cincy. We'll be right back.
Attorney Stephanie Jones is the president of the Call to Justice Foundation. It's an organization working to advance the cause of civil rights by encouraging and empowering a new generation of lawyers and advocates to answer the call to make equal justice under the law a reality for everyone. She has a long list of credentials, from working in the White House, Senate, and House of Representatives to serving as a professor at Northwestern University Law School and Chase College of Law at NKU. I sat down with her to talk about our new Supreme Court Associate Justice, Ketanji Brown Jackson.
I can only hope that my life and career, my love of this country and the Constitution, and my commitment to upholding the rule of law and the sacred principles upon which this great nation was founded will inspire future generations of Americans.
First of all, she has a great record. She has a very long record as a judge, record as an attorney. She really knows the law. She has a clear approach. She's said over and over again, she has an approach to how she handles cases. She knows what she's doing, and she articulates it so well. I think anybody listening to it, wherever they are, whether they're a law professor or an attorney or a judge or a layperson, someone who has no legal training, can understand exactly what she's talking about. And that's a real skill to have. I'm really looking forward to her being a Supreme Court justice because, for many reasons, but one of them is she's going to be really interesting on the bench during oral arguments. It's going to be fascinating watching her with the give and take with attorneys, because I think she's going to be very engaged, and she's well prepared, and she really knows her stuff.
I hope to inspire people to try to follow this path.
President Biden did make a commitment during the campaign that if he had a Supreme Court nomination, he would nominate a Black woman. And I certainly expected him to stay true to his commitment, and of course he did. So I'm not surprised that it happened, but it's still, when it did, just the joy and this feeling of excitement and pride was palpable. It was, my reaction was stronger than I expected it to be. I think she's opening the doors for other people to come behind her. And I think history is going to treat her very kindly in how she's handled herself. The idea that young black girls are watching this and watching her, and Judge Jackson is such a, first of all, she's just so brilliant. And she's brilliant in a really down-to-earth way. And she also clearly has the kind of depth that you would want in a Supreme Court justice. That she seems kind, she seems, thoughtful. She views the law the way I think you should view the law, and in a way that you want to make sure you're doing justice and you're being fair and you're paying attention to the humanity of the people in the system. And she obviously does that. And I think that sends the right message especially to young black girls, but not just black girls, black boys, right. White kids, white adults, black adults. I mean, I think it's so important for people to see someone like her in that position, because then it makes it easier for other people in all walks of life, because you develop a comfort level. And it is, it's a reality that, you have to be heads and shoulders above everybody else just to get in the door, but she's knocked it out of the park. I think I think she clearly has it all, and that's going to make a big difference. It's a really important time, and we're going through so many other things. We've been through so much that has been really painful and difficult, and it has caused people to question our institutions and the validity of the court particularly. And something like this really matters. And I think it's one of those things that can help right this ship. And it won't solve every problem, but among other things, it's an inspiration to people to keep going. It's easy for people to get frustrated and feel like giving up. And things like this can remind us, no, there are high points and there are good things. Keep going.
A supreme honor. Just ahead, a daughter's reflection on her father's potential selection to the High Court. Let's Talk Cincy. We'll be right back.
More now of my conversation with the president of the Call to Justice Foundation, Stephanie Jones. In addition to her own accomplishments, she is also the daughter of the late federal judge Nathaniel R. Jones. In fact, she will tell you her foundation is the continuation of the work of her father, who became the general counsel for the NAACP when Thurgood Marshall was appointed to the Supreme Court. Judge Jones was also among those often talked about as a potential nominee to the U.S. Supreme Court.
First of all, he would be so proud. He always worked hard throughout his career to open doors of opportunity for women lawyers, and especially black women lawyers. And he mentored many, many, many lawyers. And this would have just been a moment of great pride and excitement for him. He was one of the founding members of the Just the Beginning Foundation, which was a group of African American federal judges. And when it started out, it was just very few of them, and it grew and grew. And he was devoted to that kind of mentoring and to encouraging presidents to nominate black women to the bench. That was one of the concerns I saw in leading up to this nomination, is that while nominees who haven't been judges previously, it's not an unusual thing, and many white justices have been appointed who had not served as judges in the past. We knew that for this nomination, for the first black woman, the standards would be so much higher, and most likely she would need to have a fairly substantial record as a federal judge, and that pipeline just didn't have a lot of black women in it for obvious reasons. And so the pool of black women judges was smaller. And I think this is a good example of why we need to make sure that whenever there are nominations, whenever there are these kinds of opportunities, that Black women are considered and moved into these positions, so that there's always a very, very strong pool. As small as the pool was, it was an outstanding one. And anybody that the president picked from that would have been fantastic. But she is, Judge Jackson is just absolutely phenomenal.
Do you remember when your dad's name was tossed around for the Supreme Court?
Yeah, it was timing. It was timing. He was appointed by Jimmy Carter in 1979 to the Federal Court of Appeals, which is the court right below the Supreme Court. And then, but Jimmy Carter, of course, was out of office within a couple of years, and Ronald Reagan was president for 8 years, and then George H.W. Bush for another 4. So that during that 12 years, that would have been the ideal period for him to be nominated to a Supreme Court appointment. But we knew there was no way he was going to be appointed by either Ronald Reagan or George H.W. Bush. There was a lot of speculation that when both in 1984 and 1988, when during the presidential elections, if a Democrat had won the presidency, that he would have been on the very short list to move up to the Supreme Court. When Bill Clinton was elected in '92, and I think the first appointment came up in 1993. He was on a short list, but at that point he was considered too old, and he wasn't interested. He actually asked that he not be considered, because at that stage in his life he did not want to. He just didn't want to move up at that point. He was in his 60s at that point. So with him, it was. I always, of course, I think he would have been just an amazing Supreme Court justice, and I think the country would have been well served by him on the Supreme Court. But it was a matter of timing. That it just never happened.
I think he would have been an amazing Supreme Court justice too. This footnote, an interesting connection. During the confirmation hearings, you heard a lot about a case involving detainees at Guantanamo Bay Detention Center. Jackson was a federal public defender on 4 cases. At one point, she submitted a brief that included a statement by people not involved with the case, but individuals who added their legal expertise. Judge Nathaniel R. Jones was one of the signers of that brief. And now another Cincinnati woman who has a personal connection to our next Supreme Court justice.
Her grandmother and my grandmother are sisters. We're sisters. They're both deceased, so yeah, completely blood related. She talks about our uncle because he was the chief of police in Miami. We call him Sonny Boys, but she talks about him by his real name, of course. But my mother and my uncle, when they actually brought her forth, they were just in tears calling, and just like they kept trying to tie it to the things I've been doing with Black Lives Matter. They were like, sometimes we paved the way because that helped her to be recognized. Her aunt, who actually named her, I met when I was young, and she was on her way to the Peace Corps for the 2nd time. And I talked about all the things I wanted to do for people. And when I left meeting and talking with her, I wanted to be in the Peace Corps, all because of her. But a lot of things that I did and thought about, I always thought about having a piece of me in Africa, because she was in the Peace Corps for years. And so that's her aunt. And then the last thing is my parents actually got married at her parents' home.
Champions on the court and in the classroom. The student athletes scoring big in basketball and their books when Let's Talk Cincy returns.
Finally today, success from one court to another, but this one has nothing to do with the legal system. 2 Cincinnati high school teams became state champs in basketball, but their success is so much more than a game.
Coming from the inner city, a lot of people really don't give you a chance.
The Taft Senators boys basketball team showed they understand the meaning of rebounding this year after losing at the buzzer last year in the Final Four.
Last year we came short in the Final Four. So, just to get back here in the state championship, win it, we call it the revenge tour, that's what we did. Yeah, he hit the last-second shot at the buzzer. It was heartbreaking for all of us. So, we grinded out the summer. We said we weren't going to go out like that this year and send our seniors out the right way, and that's what we did.
They came back this year to gain the state title, the second time in school history.
We played the toughest schedule probably of any school in the state, and I always preach to the guys about MTXE, mental toughness, extra effort.
Across town, the girls' team at Purcell Marion won their first championship, a goal they set early in the season.
First day of practice was October 26th. I think it was October 12th or October 13th. We had a weight room session, and they all said that they wanted to win a state championship. I said, is that what y'all really want? I said, if you don't, step out. They all stayed in there. And I said, it's not going to be an easy task. And sure enough, after 73 practices and 28 games, we were crowned state champions.
Both teams were recognized by the Hamilton County Commissioners. Hoops, just part of the excellence of these teams. The true accomplishment, their winning scores in the classroom.
And it starts off the court. I learned it from Bob Huggins. If you do good on the court, off the court, it'll be a carryover on the court. I got 11 guys. 9 out of 11 is on the honor roll. Them guys put the time in on the court as well as off the court, and it carry over.
My dream is definitely to play Division I basketball. Definitely be a lottery picking. The draft, whichever year that is. If it take me 1, 2, 3, or all 4, definitely want to make it to the NBA. Take care of my family.
Players and our student coaches had a 3.7 team GPA, program GPA. So we had, I think it was 6 girls on the dean list, 6 or 7 girls on the dean list. I always tell them that you're a student before you're an athlete. It's been times where I've had to sit kids, where I had to run kids because of the academic portion. And I'm not the coach that's going to sell my soul for a win. For instance, probably arguably our best player for academic reason. I said, if we lose this basketball game, we lose this basketball game. But at the end, it's going to benefit her, it's going to benefit our team down the road.
To have 11 guys and 9 out of 11 on the honor roll, it's just unbelievable. But, I tell the guys, school first, basketball second. They'll tell you that all the time. I'm on them. And it just don't come from me. Darren Goodson, John Stone, Jarvis Shaw, my supporting cast. It takes a village to raise these kids. It's a program, and that's what I try to do. From the 7th grade on up to me, I just preach, school first, basketball second.
What a great message from that coach, and definitely how great it is to honor those young people. Well, that does it for this program today. Thanks for joining us. I'll see you next time for another edition of Let's Talk Cincy.